Okay, welcome back to episode 2. We are going to take off right from where we left off. I did I did listen back to the video that I just did, and there was a couple things I noticed, like I breathing through my nose way too loud. So if I pause, it's me thinking to breathe from my nose so loud. I want to use this as an opportunity to get better at recording videos and better content. So we'll be analyzing each video after I've done. So we'll also say a lot when I'm thinking. So I'm going to try and not do that. So without further ado, let's kick off from where we left off. Okay, so what we did is we created a SharePoint list. We added some columns to there, very basic columns. I think it was 5 or 4, sorry. We've gone into Power Apps. We've created a form. We created the gallery. What's next, right? So I really want to spend some time on this episode to go through if statements. If statements can be used for so many things. It works exactly like how you think it would in Excel. If you are pretty good at Excel, you will pick up this concept quite easily. Pretty much, but if you have a label. So if statement works is you need a condition, you need a true statement, a false statement, right? So the basics of basic would be I can grab this data card name, right? So this text input. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type if, capital I, lowercase f, open brackets. So now it's going to tell you need a logic test or a condition, true value, then a false value. So what I want to check is to see if this data card value equals the letter M, right? So I'm just going to paste that data card value 3. Now I need to get the properties. If I just go like this, equals M, right? And then do true, false, it's going to error out because it's like, whoa, what? M in what? I need to tell it, like it's smart but not smart. So I need to tell it what specific property I'm looking for this, right? For looking for that letter M. So I do dot and then I do text, because even though it is like a value that we've put in there or a string that we've put in there, it's still a text. That's where that value lives, or that string lives, is in the text property. So if I do dot text, you can see it is true, so I get a true statement. Now here you can put anything. You can put hello, and here you can put goodbye, for an example. This is really basic and silly how I'm just showing you this, but I don't want to give the if statement like, oh, this is way too complex, or it's not complex. It is very basic. Give it a condition. You can give it multiple conditions, which I'll go through in a second, and then you give it a true statement, false statement. So as you can see here, the letter is M, so it is hello. If it's not M, so it could be any other letter, it is goodbye. But now, let's say I want that to be goodbye if it is the letter F, right? So if I go here, my false statement, so pretty much the way that we're going to work it is we got to look at it as conditions. So you got if this condition is met, then hello. Then it goes into a false statement. Now, I have seen ways that people have coded before, and some people will go like this. They will go if that, right? If not, we do another if statement, text equals F goodbye, right? That's not going to work in all circumstances. It can work on buttons, but not in text values like this. There's no reason to code heaps and heaps and if. It was my rookie mistake as well. Let's propel forward past that. All you got to do is make your false statement and do condition, right? So you go data card value.3.text equals F, and then we're going to go goodbye, right? So the way that this is now working is it goes if this equals M, hello. In this current situation, it equals F. So it's like, no, that's false. So the false statement is this. So if we go true statement, right? and then under here is false statement. Now I know I glazed over that very quickly, didn't even mention anything. 2 dashes is for comments. I just like to put 4 because it stands out a bit more for me, right? So you only need 2 to do comments, but I do 4. Just personal preference. So as you can see here, it's looking at the f, it equals f. So, oh, well that's the true value. So then I can give it a final false value, right? And I could just say nil. So now, if I go into here, and I have nothing there, it changes to nil. If I have m there, it changes to hello. And if I have f there, it changes to low. So, goodbye. So, something we need to also realize that it is looking for that exact string or that exact value. So, if I do a lower f, it's not a capital F, so it's going to be like, well, no, that's still not what you've told me to do. So that's where it's smart but not smart, is what I try and tell people that I'm teaching, is that you can tell it directly, but then it's also going to take it literally at the same time. So literally capital F, that's what I'm looking for. The only way to get around it would be off the top of my head. I can't really think about it right now. You'd use like a lowercase, or you'd make sure. So that's why when it comes to free texting, we don't want to use free text as much as possible, right? We want to use hard text, right? We want to give them choices, right? So in this particular case, I'm just going to change this to male cut and female cut, right? Simple as that. So now I know if the user is M here, it's going to equal male cut. And if it is an F, it's going to equal female. And I forgot to put cut at the end. Cut. And if it doesn't, if it's not anything, it's just going to be nil, right? That is if statement as nice, neatly, and basic as I can explain it. You got a condition, you got a true or false statement. Now your false statement or even your true statement can be another if, like it could be another condition, right? And you can have as many conditions as you want within an if statement. You don't need to have multiple if formulas. You can just have multiple condition formulas, right? That's as basic as I can't simplify ifs any more than that off the top of my head. There's plenty of examples out there if you need it. For this particular case, what I want to do is I will eventually create 2 buttons here, one's for male, one's for female, and depending on what they press, right, we'll then push this data into this column, right? So if I do a button like so, we're getting into a little bit of a tricky space, and I'm trying to think, I'm kind of like think of this on the fly. So I'm going to do M for male, and I'm just going to do, let's reduce this to 80, right? And then I'll do a F for female, like so. Right, so what I want to do is I'm now going to play with variables. Now, normally I wouldn't introduce people into variables so early, but you need to be familiar like this exists in Power Apps. Variables are very, very powerful. It allows you to send information across the screen where you normally couldn't, right? So the thing is, with your on buttons, right, even though this is M and this is F, I can't actually send anything. Like just clicking this does nothing, and there's no way for me to send a value to here, right? The way that I do that is using variables. There's 2 types of variables. There is global variables, which are set from, so that's funny I use that, they are created with the set function, right? Now, when you use set, you are setting a global variable. The way that I name my variables, if it's global, I'll start with global underscore, and then I will name it something. So I'll go gender cut, for example, comma, right? You'll see that there's going to be a difference between global and local variables, is what I call them. Global means that the variables will be shared across all screens throughout the app. Local means that they are only accessible on the screen that you're currently on. So you can't send data from one screen to another using a local. You can only send data using a global. Very important to know the difference. Very important to be able to differentiate the 2 differences between when you're using variables throughout the app. So I'm just going to go gender cut, you do comma, and then I'm going to pass through the M as a string to that global, right? I'm then going to copy this, and I'm going to do the same over here, but instead do F. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this if statement now and hard code something into here for the default. So I'm going to put if global, right? So I'm referencing that variable that I just created equals M, right? I want it to say male cut, right? Now I want to add a second condition, which is technically my false statement or false value. And I'm going to do the same thing, equals F, the true statement for that is going to be female cut. And then I'm going to close brackets. So now what happens is if I press M, it goes male cut. And if I press F, it goes female cut, right? But the problem is the user's not going to really know which one they've clicked, right? So one way around that is you can use this disabled function. Kind of makes it look like you've pressed a button. Let me just mute that. Kind of makes it look like you've pressed the button indented. So if I go display mode, so I've selected the button itself, right? I've gone to the properties drop down on the top left. There's a display mode. That is what display mode of that particular button. So you got view, edit, and disabled. View means they can see it, they can't press it. Edit means that they can press it. Disabled means it's just there. It's grayed out normally. It's not meant to be doing anything, right? So what I want to do is I can just add an if statement to this, can't I? So I'm just going to cut this so I have it in the background. I'm going to get if global gender cut equals M, right? I'm going to go display mode, so you can type it in. Sorry, I'm going a bit quick, I apologize. Display mode disabled. That's the true statement. So if it equals M, this is going to be disabled. If it doesn't equal M, I want it to be edit mode. So as you can see, that is now grayed out. I can't press that. But if I press the F, now I can. So I'm just going to switch these. I'm going to go to the female button, press display mode, and I'm going to change this to F, right? So now you can see I can easily swap between what is selected. Right? Now, this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. When I click on these, I also need to make sure that I'm bringing in the default. So as you can see, even though it's M, I haven't actually defaulted it to this. So this is where I need to put an on select for this particular gallery. So the gallery, yes, it does have an on select, like so. On select, I want to set that same global variable, gender cut, to this item dot gender cut. Right? Remember I explained what the concept of this item is in the previous episode. So if you haven't watched it, it is important to go watch that. It sets up a lot of the basics. And moving forward as well, each of these episodes is just going to be building upon what we learnt on the previous episodes and using what we used in the previous episodes. So now when I select this, right, it's going to set that global variable as either M or F based on what I've selected, right? But what's going to happen is if I submit this form, that's going to come through as male cut, right? And I don't want that. I just want it coming through as M or F. So I'm just going to go back to this, and I'm just going to remove this, and I'm just going to set it based on the global variable, like so. So now that is set as M, so I can save this back. So now if I select this one, go F, and I'm going to submit this, you should see here, see that's changed to F now. So now I'm automatically setting the global variable based on what the gallery, what the selected gallery item is, right? So that's one way of removing the ability for people to use free text, which is a big no-no when it comes to apps, and filtering and all your data and stuff like that. There are definitely times that you want to use free text, something like the selection between a male and female cut. We just want to keep it to like a non-free text as possible. Okay, exciting. So Need to kind of rewind a little bit. Let's see what we've done so far. So we've learnt about if statements, we've learnt about global variables. Let's learn about local variables. It's a very similar concept. I'm just going to grab one of these, put them here. Actually, no, I'm just going to create a new button. Apologies, out of breath. Boom. So, same concept as a global variable, except instead of it being everywhere throughout the app, it's only on one specific screen. So when we create this variable, it's only going to be usable on this screen. So, the difference set is for global. Update context, let me do that again. Update context is for local. Now, you need to do an open brackets and an open curly brackets. Then you give the name of your local variable. My personal preference is I always start with local underscore, then I'd give the name. So in this particular, I'll just go gender underscore cut. Now, you don't do a comma because it's not another part of the formula. You do the 2 dots. I need to figure out what the name is. I will figure it out at next cut, and I'll say it again. But you use 2 dots, which is the shift one next to L, and then you put in the value that you want to push through. So I want to push through an M. You close it with curly brackets and a normal bracket. That is your local variable. So now if I go here, let's just copy paste this, change this to reference the local variable, and if I press that, M comes through. I can do the same thing with a female button as well, like so. Boom, 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 boom. Male, female, male, female. And that is different to this one. This is a global up here. This is a local. And then when you go over to your variables, your global will appear here. Your local will appear here. Right, so you can always refer back to it. That is the basics in terms of variables. I rushed it. Yes, there is more to it. I understand that. When we get to that, I will go a little bit further into it. You can use variables to store pardon me, an assortment of data. So you could bring in a whole list. So actually I will do that as an example, right? So if let me just delete this, delete this, and delete this, right? So I'm going to do update context, and I'm going to call this local first item, right? Now, I'm going to be throwing in some new formulas. This is just to show you what the variables could do. I'll give a brief explanation about what formulas I'm using, but then I will go into more detail further on. So the one I'm going to use is just first. Now, this formula will just bring in the first item of whatever array that you set it to. So I'm now going to reference our SharePoint list, like so, and then close it. Now, when I press this button and refresh this, you see this is now changed. I can view this record. Now this has brought in the very first record, ID number 1, of that SharePoint list. So you can store an assortment of data in a variable. As far as off the top of my head, I can recall it's just only one row, but it's like multiple, right? You could probably, you could probably do multiple rows. I've just never needed to do that. I do it a different way. But anyway, that is the power of variables. You can use it for a lot of things. It is very basic, but you can use it in complex ways, which I'm sure we will get to it. Okay, now to round out the episode, I'm going to do something a little bit quicker, and it's just about automating 2 fields that we have here. We've got the employee name and the employee email address. Now, it's very easy to automate this. There's actually a inbuilt formula for that specifically to collect the user email and user name, full name, and it is just user brackets, and then you press dot and you get all the properties. So this is everything that Power Apps will bring in terms of properties from the user. Right? So I can get the full name, So you can see my full name is this, and I can get my email, which is this one here, right? That's as easy as it is. So all I would do is I'd come into here, and I would, if this was a new form, right, which it isn't at the moment, I would set this property to parent.default, right? But it's not. So what we're going to do, and this is me learning this on the fly because I don't realistically do it this way, but it's good to learn how to do it. We are going to create a new form. So there is actually a button for that. Sorry, a formula for that. And it is literally just called new form, form 1. Now, what this does is going to be a nice surprise to me. I'm not going to lie. So I'm just going to change this to new form. But this is how you learn Power Apps, is trying things out, right? This is how I learned how to do it. So we're just going to click new form, and looks like that resets all the fields. But as you can see here, it doesn't change this, and that's what we need to look at. So when we look at here, we can see that it is still set to edit, but here it's just blanked it all out, which is really, really interesting. So if I click here, cool, nothing's changing for that. So maybe if I reset the form now, is that what's going to be the trigger? So if I go reset form 1, like so, if I do that, okay, so that's going to prompt it to switch between new and back to its old version. So what I want to do is I want to see something, right? I need to see if this is changed. Oops. If this has changed this to a new display form, because that's how we're going to really prompt a lot of things. So if we go form1.display mode, so it's currently edit. And you change this to reset so I know what I'm pressing. So it's currently edit. So that property doesn't change. So what actually changes here? Okay, so once again, this is all about us learning. So I've just learned what it is. So the form has a hidden property that we can't actually see here, and even when I look in here, it's not here, right? It's actually just called mode, right? So when we're looking at the mode of it, so we go form1.mode, new is equal to 1, right? So if I do an if statement, and this is how you troubleshoot your properties and you learn how things really work. If I want to discover if this is in new mode, I do this condition: if form1.mode equals 1, true, false. So at the moment it's in edit mode. When I click here, it goes to new mode. The reason for that is we need to show the parent.default or something else based on if this is a new form or not. Mainly, right? Mainly for the user employee details, right? Because let's just say that someone else is in here, right? We're just using the one form. Normally I use 2 separate forms. I use a new form and an edit form, and I do it that way because it's so much easier. This is just to learn that you can do it in the one form. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's still good to show so you understand how forms really work. So what I would do is, oops, you got to unlock it. So whenever you're playing with data cards, you need to unlock them. You just unlock them by going to advanced, boom, like so. So I'm going to just cut this. I'm going to go if self mode, because I'm referencing the form itself, equals, and it is 1, right? If it equals new, we're going to go user, right, dot full name. And if it doesn't equal 1, it means it should be in edit or view mode. So then we go parent.default, right? So is that correct? If this self doesn't work, I'm just going to actually just reference this here. So we can see that it's currently in form 1. Okay, so let's just change this to form 1. Form 1, because it obviously didn't like that. So there we go. So you can see that because it's in new mode, it's going to show J Kennedy. The way that we can see that is I'll reset this. I'll change this user to, I don't want to use anyone I know, so let's just go Kenny McDonald Kennedy, right? Not anyone I particular know, just made it up, and I'm going to submit. So this has changed it to McDonald Kennedy now, right? We can see that because it's there. So now, if I go new form, it's got to reset it. It's got to show my actual name, like right there. And that's what we want. Because it's new, we need to know the person that's logged in at the moment so that I can still go and view these items as they were captured in that particular time, right? That's the main thing. What you would normally do anyways, you'd be disabling these or putting them as views so they can't actually be edited. But that's just for another day anyway. So now I'm going to grab the same code and I'm going to put it here. So I'm just literally clicking Control A, Control C to copy. I apologize because I'm very fast. I'm going to paste this here after I unlock it. And instead of full name, I'm going to put email. Like so. So now, when I reset, and I come to McDonald Kennedy and change the name, the email to mcdonald.kenny and save it. So I can see it's McDonald Kennedy there, and TJK Productions there. But when I go new form, it goes like that. So the last thing that I'm going to do for this episode is going to be a random reference number generator. You can do it however you want. I'm just going to give you the most basic one for now. So we're going to use a new formula or function, I suppose, which is an AND symbol or AND function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do uniform. So we'll just do TJK for first three reference, right? Now what I want to do is I want to add a calculations and I want to add a random number, right? So first what I need to do is I need to connect this to another function, right? Which is going to be a rand function. So the way I could do that is you could do AND like this, or if you want to make your code a little bit cleaner, you can do just the AND symbol. And then we use rand, so RAND, and we want rand between. So we're going to give it two big numbers, or two big numbers, and then it's going to randomly pick a number between there, right? So I'm going to go rand between, and let's just give it 1 to 10,000 and close. So as you can see there, it's going TJK112. So if I reset this and keep resetting it, we'll go new form, reset, new form, reset. We can see that's happening. But I also need to do this code here as well, don't I? Because I need it to be, if it is new, I need it to be random. If not, I need it to be the parent.default. Simple as that. So now, if it's a new form, it's going to give me a random number. If it's an existing form, it's going to give me the actual reference number that's there. Now, you might see that if it's under 1,000, which is rare, it's actually got to lower the digits that come through. And I want to keep it at a high digit. So I want to keep it at least 4 digits, right? So there you go, you got 30,000 there for some reason. Nope. Anyway, so what you need to do, let's go 20,000. Well, let's go 90. Maybe that will help me a little bit more. So you see here it's 27,000. 37,000. Okay, it's not going to help me, but that's fine. What it could be is we want to keep it so that it's never going to just be one digit. So it'll never be TJK 1 to 9 or whatever like that. So we need to actually tell it, hey, you need to at least be this many digits. The way we do that is we just do text, right? And then we put in those brackets the text value that we want to convert, or the value that we want to convert. So you can convert numbers, values to strings, which is what we're doing with text. And then you need to do in quotes how many digits it needs to be at a minimum. So I want it to at least be a minimum of 5 digits, right? So now anytime it goes through, it's never going to be less than 5 digits long, right? Now, it's not the best way for random generation because there is that 1 in 90,000 chance that we do land on the same numbers. I won't be using that for the final product, but I will be using the rand between as a part of that final product, which I will get to in later episodes. I'm just showing you now when it's a new form, it's going to give you a random reference number, and when it's not, it's going to be whatever you select. I think that should be it at the moment. I don't even know how long I'll be going for. I'm very passionate about this, and so I do go a bit off the hinge. We've talked about a lot of coding. Next episode, I want to do a little bit of designing, right? We've got a very fundamental basic of how the codes work, the functions work, the if statements, ran betweens, all this type of stuff we're going to use throughout the app. But let's just take it, let's actually start to make it look pretty, because that's where these Power Apps are going to shine, especially in Canvas apps. So the next episode will be all about design. So we're just going to design something very quickly using a couple of different tools and skills that I've learned over the past couple of years that I've been doing this. But look forward to next episode. I'll be recording it straight after this anyway, so it'll be nice and fresh in the brain. Thank you for watching. Keep watching. I'm going to be listening to this. I can already hear myself saying I'm going to be re-listening to this anyway. Make sure my breathing's under control. Make sure I'm not saying as much, but we'll see. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.